KPBS On Demand is supported by Heal the Earth, working to change San Diego's food system by supporting local farmers through direct partnerships and initiatives like their Adopt an Avocado Tree that supports the farm-to-table experience. Learn more at adoptanavocadotree.com.
Welcome in, San Diego. It's Jade Hindman. On today's show, book author George Saunders will be at the Writer Symposium by the Sea at Point Loma Nazarene University this week. He joins us to talk about his novel, Lincoln in the Bardo. This is KPBS Midday Edition, connecting our communities through conversation. It's February 1862. Then President Abraham Lincoln mourns the death of his son, Willie, by visiting his gravesite. That's the premise behind the acclaimed 2017 novel, Lincoln in the Bardo. The book would go on to win the Booker Prize and become a runaway bestseller for its creative meditation of grief. The author behind it is George Saunders. He is among the authors appearing at this week's Writer Symposium by the Sea at Point Loma Nazarene University. George Saunders, welcome to Midday Edition.
It's nice to be here, Jade. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so glad to have you on. You came to novels fairly late in your career. The short story dominated much of your early work. What is it about the short story that has really made it such a focus of your writing?
Well, I grew up in Chicago on the South Side, and it was a very jokey culture. And I think that's what a short story is really. It's very similar to the joke in that you have to get in and out quick, and when you're done, if nobody laughs, you're in trouble. So it's kind of a form that I sort of knew organically.
Wow. Well, for Lincoln in the Bardo, your debut novel, you have said it took a long time from when inspiration struck to actually writing it. So talk to me a little bit about why it took so long to write and what led you to do that.
Sure. Well, I had my early work is kind of sarcastic and sci-fi and kind of dark and very contemporary. And in those early years, we went by the graveyard in Oak Hill in Georgetown where Lincoln's son was buried. And my wife's cousin pointed out the crypt, and I thought, man, that's a beautiful story. But I just didn't feel like there was much cross-section between what I was doing at that time in that kind of sarcastic mode and this, beautiful, earnest story. So really, it took me about 20 years of just, kind of getting older and our kids growing up and getting maybe in touch with a kind of more positive valence of life. And then at about, I think I was 52 or 53, I thought, man, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And I didn't want to be the guy whose gravestone read, avoided the thing he most longed to do. So I had to get down to it.
I get it. Well, how do you approach writing a novel compared to writing a short story?
Well, I mean, I'm a big improv person, so I think a lot of the good energy that a reader and writer share comes from the moments when the writer kind of jumps out of his own conception of what the book is and surprises himself. So really, the only difference is with the two novels, I just kind of think of there's a real simple plot that's like a clothesline. So in Lincoln, it's, Abe Lincoln goes into the cemetery and interacts with his son's body. That's the through line. And then the improv, it's really very similar. I think the joy is in those moments when I'm sitting over here typing and I surprise myself, and then several years later, that surprise translates to you as a reader. And so we feel that kind of beautiful connection that reading can offer.
Well, listen to this. The theme for this year's Symposium by the Sea is writing across the divide. What does that evoke for you?
Well, I guess I feel like we're always doing that. I mean, I'm over here in my mind with my own delusions about my own separateness and permanent nature, and you're over there with presumably similar ideas. And in any kind of art, or I guess any kind of genuine human communication, I make the leap of faith that no matter who you are, where you come from, we have something in common. So I put that out for you, and you come and get it. And in that instant, the divide goes away, and we're kind of one mind. So I think that's the fundamentally really hopeful that we turn to art for. And I think, in this time in particular, it's very important that human beings remind ourselves that connection actually is possible, through honesty and good faith and love. And I think literature is, for me, is one way that I certainly feel that from the writer's side of that equation.
Lincoln in the Bardo is being adapted to a film. And this week, news hit that Tom Hanks is going to be playing Abraham Lincoln in the film.
Yeah, yeah,
What?
that was a good week around our house. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, tell me about your
Yeah, yeah.
reaction to that.
Well, I mean, I've known about it for a little bit, but it was just, it's a dream. He's such a wonderfully expressive actor. And I think in a certain way, in the same way that we each have a Lincoln in our heart, a kind of privatized Lincoln. I think Tom Hanks has the same quality. You look at him and you project positive qualities onto him. So I'm really just thrilled about it and can't wait to see what he does.
Well, what's it been like to see this story you wrote on the page become a film?
Well, it's great. I mean, I think as a young person, I always kind of dreamed of that, and it hasn't happened up until now, really. So it's really great, and it's sort of like uh, it's kind of good for your ego in a sense because you have to share it. You have to share it with the director. You have to share it with the actors. You have to share it with everybody. And again, that's another form of saying, I trust you. You're going to do what you have to do to make something beautiful about it. So, for writing is such a private, obsessively private activity, and so in many ways in my life, in the movies, but in many other ways, I'm trying to get out a little more, and try to believe in community and make it for myself. So this is a very nice, practical way to do that.
That's great. Well, your most recent novel is Vigil, and it came out just last month. It also focuses on someone struggling with a life coming to an end. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about I think there is a certain way in which, if you're at all sane, you start thinking, well, how did I do? How have I done so far? And is there anything I need to change? And I found myself thinking about kind of the next older generation, like people who might be in their 80s or so now, and particularly of that kind of generation of oil people and PR people and political people who kind of quietly conspired to kick climate change down the road. And it's a very interesting book called The Merchants of Doubt that talks about this movement that actually came over intact from tobacco
Hmm.
with all these denial strategies that they learned and perfected. So I was kind of thinking in the abstract about that. And then the two ideas kind of came together. Like if you were a person who had done something that monumentally rotten, and now you're at the end of your life, excuse me, at the end of your life, is there such a thing as last minute redemption? If so, what does a person's mind have to do to reject a lifetime of self? And I think, it's funny, as I wrote it, all these things were happening in the bigger world that, have made these questions kind of large. Like there is actually real evil in the world. But the people who perpetrate it might not, they might not be Cruella de Vil, they might be
Hmm.
on the outside, high functioning people. So how do we deal with them? How do they deal with themselves? How do we identify those tendencies within ourselves? And for me, the big thing was, what does redemption look like? Is it available to everybody? So those kind of questions that a novel can actually get you inside of in a kind of interesting way.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of redemption, how do you think about things like, hope and joy when telling stories, which are often centered around darker aspects of life, like loss?
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of for me in my life. That's been the big challenge. Is it seems after a certain point, when you're young, I think you think loss is something that happens to other people, those dummies. And then at some point you go, oh, wait a minute, loss is kind of it's just baked into everything. It's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So then for me, the thing is how indeed do we live joyfully knowing that the hammer's coming down on us, and not only on us but everyone that we love and everything that we cherish. That's a really in the Lincoln book, that was really a question that was very alive for me, is given that we're all temporary, can we still live with some kind of joy? And I guess I'm just trying to work it out for myself, to be honest.
Wow. Well, in addition to your writing, you also taught creative writing at Syracuse University for 30 years. What did you learn about teaching writing over the years?
Mm. I still do teach there. I learned basically kind of, it sounds simple, but like faith in young people, because, I would keep getting older and older, and basically, the students would stay the same age. Uh, and we always have such a beautiful connection over just writing. They can be very different from me, have a complete different experience of life, but we sit down over one of their stories and I start editing it, and I've gotten much better at listening to them and trying to hear what they have to say, and we almost always connect. And so that's been a great gift, as you get older, just instead of saying, "Oh, these kids today," I'm like, "Oh, these kids today." So that's been beautiful. And just the idea that things are workable. You can work out a relationship with them, you can work with their stories. And that's a a real bright spot in my life.
Wow. How do you think the challenges facing a younger writer today are different from the ones you faced when you began your career?
That's a great question. I mean, in some ways they're the same, which is just how do I find my voice? How do I find a way to say something no one else could say? How do I take my private, perhaps difficult experiences and get them into my work? That's always the same. The challenge I think now is the same as the broader challenge for young people, which is that all the money has floated upwards, and these corporate structures that we've made have made it very difficult to be a struggling writer. My wife and I were lucky enough to know Toni Morrison, and she used to talk about the way that when she was a young woman, a person could be poor and still be a respected part of the community. There was no shame associated with it. And so by extrapolation, you could be a young artist and of course you'd be struggling. But the way the kind of corporate environment has changed things is that there's very little room for a young writer to do the necessary struggle. It might take 5, 10 years. We don't really make a sacred space for that in our culture anymore. So these kids they get out of the program and they have to hit the ground running. And often their financial needs make it such that their writing time gets crowded out. That's a problem. And then I know AI has created a lot of anxiety. And
Yeah.
to me, it's just like AI and writing. We don't actually need it.
Right.
We have human beings for that. Thank you very much.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because society doesn't lend itself to people taking the necessary time to really write a book within a timely fashion to meet your financial needs. So do you see AI sort of creeping in there and people maybe relying on that to get a book
Yes.
done faster?
Well, I think that what I feel is that the people who are inventing this stuff and making these huge investments are pushing it in the places that it doesn't really have a natural home. I think I've heard that in math and science, it's very useful. But when you think about, me writing a book over here and you reading over there, we both are counting on the full humanity of the other person. That's what the game is. You're turning to me. I'm saying I've had these experiences. I've had these losses. Let me put it into this kind of small form of a story, hand it to you, see if your stories and your losses resonate. That's something that only two people can do. So AI can simulate it, but why do we want the simulation when we can have the real thing? It's called humanities.
Yeah,
So,
indeed.
so I think sometimes we can just say, no, thank you. You're amazing, but please stay out.
Right. There's some things that AI cannot replace for sure. Listen, what can you tell me about your next project? I mean, and do you know what form it'll take?
No, honestly, I have no idea. I'm in that kind of beautiful space where it's all potential. I'm on tour for this book now, and I'm almost done. I'll be done. Actually, after I come to San Diego, I'm going to go home to LA and just look at a blank page. So that's really exciting because it's, I haven't screwed it up yet. But but basically, I just want to. For me, at this point, I'm really interested in making a book that's as big as I feel about the world. As complicated and with as much good and evil in it. And also, I'm kind of I like the idea of putting a little more celebration in there. Just before I go out the door, just praising this place one more time. Really good.
All right. Well, that'll be a welcome project, I'm sure. I mean,
I got to work on it.
Oh, you got it. You got it. What are you most looking forward to about your upcoming visit to San Diego for the Writers' Symposium?
Well, honestly, I've only been to San Diego. I'm sorry, I have a cough. Once before, I did a piece for GQ where I drove the whole Mexican border with America and with the U.S. And I went to the border right there near San Diego, and I'd been, living out of my car for 10 days, and I just came to the hotel and went to sleep. So I don't know San Diego, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some other sides of it.
All right. Well, I can't wait for you to see San Diego. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I've been speaking with author George Saunders. He will be appearing at this year's Writer Symposium by the Sea at Point Loma Nazarene University this Friday, February 27th at 7 p.m. You can find more information at our website, kpbs.org. George, thank you so much. It was great speaking with you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Jade Hindman. Thanks for tuning in to Midday Edition. Be sure to have a great day on purpose, everyone.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Under the Sun Foundation, presenting the Candlewood Arts Festival in Borrego Springs, featuring temporary public art projects that engage community and place. March 7th. More at candlewoodartsfestival.org.